A billionaire fired his maid because of her toddler. Minutes later, the child saved his mother's life. Leave this house immediately. The billionaire's furious fiancée pointed toward the front door. The frightened 2-year-old boy clung to his mother's leg, confused by the shouting. The maid tried to explain. I'm sorry. The daycare called. They closed unexpectedly. I had nowhere else to take him. I don't care, the woman shouted. You were hired to clean this mansion, not turn it into a daycare. The billionaire walked into the room just as his fiancée pointed at the crying toddler. Either she leaves today, or I do. The billionaire looked at the maid, then at the frightened little boy. With a heavy sigh, he made the decision he would regret for the rest of his life. You're fired. The maid wiped away her tears, picked up her son, and quietly walked toward the front door. Neither of them noticed that upstairs, the billionaire's elderly mother had suddenly collapsed, and the only person who could help her wasn't a doctor. It was the little boy who had just been thrown out. You're fired! Leave this house immediately! The sharp voice echoed through the billionaire's marble mansion. 2-year-old Noah flinched at the sound and instinctively wrapped his tiny arms around his mother's leg. His little eyes filled with tears as he looked up at the angry woman standing before them. Evelyn Brooks, a hard-working maid in her early 30s, lowered her head. I'm so sorry, ma'am, she said quietly. The daycare called this morning. There was an emergency and they had to close. I tried calling everyone I know, but no one could watch him. The elegant woman folded her arms. And you thought bringing him into my home was acceptable? Evelyn swallowed hard. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't afford to miss work. The woman scoffed. You always have a choice. Noah looked around nervously, clutching his small stuffed bear. I'm hungry, Mommy, he whispered. The woman rolled her eyes. Now he's making noise. Before Evelyn could respond, footsteps echoed down the grand staircase. Billionaire Daniel Harrison had just returned from an early business meeting. Tall, composed, and respected across the country, Daniel paused the moment he noticed the confrontation unfolding in his foyer. What's going on? His fiancée, Victoria Langford, immediately pointed toward Evelyn. Your maid brought her child into our home. Daniel looked at Evelyn, then at the frightened little boy hiding behind her. Evelyn? She fought back tears. I'm sorry, sir. The daycare closed unexpectedly. I had nowhere else to take him. Daniel sighed. Evelyn had worked in his mansion for nearly 4 years. She had never been late, never stolen, never complained. His elderly mother often praised her kindness. Still, Victoria wasn't finished. If she gets away with this, every employee will think they can bring their children here. Daniel remained silent. Victoria stepped closer. I've already made up my mind. She looked directly at him. Either she leaves today, she paused dramatically, nor I do. The mansion fell silent. The house staff stopped what they were doing. Everyone watched Daniel. Evelyn held Noah a little tighter. She wasn't expecting sympathy anymore. She was only praying she wouldn't lose the job that paid their rent. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. Then he spoke. Evelyn. She slowly looked up. I'm sorry. His voice was heavy. But you're fired. The words hit harder than she expected. Tears streamed down her face. She nodded without arguing. I understand. She knelt beside Noah and forced a smile. Come on, sweetheart. Noah looked confused. Are we going home? Yes. He reached for his little backpack. As they walked toward the front door, several members of the household staff quietly wiped away tears. Everyone knew Evelyn. She often stayed late to help others finish their work. She brought homemade meals for the elderly gardener. She even spent her lunch breaks reading to Daniel's aging mother whenever she felt lonely. No one believed she deserved this. Victoria, however, looked satisfied. Finally, she muttered, the mansion will feel professional again. Evelyn heard the comment but kept walking. She refused to let Noah see her breakdown. Outside, the morning sun felt unusually cold. She held her son's tiny hand as they walked down the long driveway. Halfway to the gate, Noah suddenly stopped. He turned toward the mansion. Mommy, what is it? The little boy frowned. I forgot to give Grandma my picture. Evelyn looked at the crayon drawing sticking out of his backpack. The night before, Noah had spent nearly an hour coloring a picture of himself holding hands with Daniel's elderly mother, Margaret. At the top, in crooked little letters, he had proudly written, "I love you, Grandma Maggie."
Evelyn smiled through her tears. We'll give it to her another day. But Noah didn't move. Instead, he stared toward one of the upstairs windows. His cheerful expression suddenly disappeared. "Mommy," his voice trembled. "Why is Grandma sleeping on the floor?" Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. She followed the direction of his tiny finger, and what she saw in the upstairs sitting room made the color drain from her face. Margaret Harrison wasn't sleeping. She had collapsed, and no one inside the mansion had noticed. Evelyn's heart nearly stopped. Without thinking, she scooped Noah into her arms and sprinted back toward the mansion. "Open the door!" she shouted, pounding on a massive wooden entrance. The security guard recognized her immediately and hurried to unlock it. "Evelyn, I thought you—" "Mrs. Harrison," she cried. "Something's wrong with Mrs. Harrison." The urgency in her voice sent everyone into motion. Inside the foyer, Daniel and Victoria were still discussing Evelyn's dismissal when they heard frantic footsteps racing toward them. "Evelyn," Daniel exclaimed, "what are you doing back here?" She pointed upstairs, struggling to catch her breath. "Your mother, she's collapsed." Victoria frowned. "Don't be ridiculous. She's probably taking a nap." "No!" Noah shouted, pointing upstairs with his tiny finger. "Grandma on floor." Daniel's face changed instantly. Without another word, he bolted upstairs 2 steps at a time. The others followed close behind. When they reached Margaret's sitting room, Daniel froze. His 80-year-old mother lay motionless beside her favorite armchair. One hand rested against her chest. The other stretched toward the floor. "Mom!" Daniel cried, dropping to his knees. There was no response. Victoria stood frozen in panic. "What do we do?" Evelyn immediately rushed forward. "Call an ambulance." A housekeeper grabbed her phone, while Daniel desperately tried to wake his mother. Margaret's breathing had become weak and uneven. Noah quietly slipped from Evelyn's arms. He walked toward the armchair, staring underneath it. Then he pointed. "Grandma medicine." Everyone looked at him. Beneath the chair, barely visible, was a blue inhaler. It had rolled underneath when Margaret collapsed. Daniel hadn't seen it. Neither had Victoria. Evelyn quickly reached down, retrieved the inhaler, and gently helped Margaret use it while speaking calmly. "Breathe slowly, Mrs. Harrison. That's it. You're going to be okay." Within moments, Margaret's breathing became steadier. Her eyelids fluttered open. "Daniel," she whispered. Relief flooded the room. Daniel gripped his mother's hand, tears filling his eyes. The sound of approaching sirens echoed outside. Paramedics rushed in minutes later, examined Margaret, and nodded approvingly. "You acted quickly," one paramedic said. "If she'd gone much longer without her inhaler, this could have ended very differently." Daniel slowly turned toward Evelyn, then toward little Noah, the same toddler who had been thrown out of the mansion only minutes earlier. Victoria lowered her eyes, unable to speak. Daniel's voice was barely above a whisper. I just fired the 2 people who saved my mother's life." The ambulance disappeared through the mansion gates. Daniel remained standing in the driveway, unable to take his eyes off Evelyn and little Noah. Only 30 minutes earlier, he had sent them away. Now he knew one painful truth. If they had left just a minute sooner, his mother might never have opened her eyes again. "Evelyn," Daniel called. She stopped but didn't turn around immediately. Slowly, she faced him. "Yes, sir." Daniel walked toward her, his voice heavy with regret. "I'm sorry." Evelyn offered a small, tired smile. "The important thing is that your mother is alive." She reached for Noah's hand. "We should go." "Please wait." Daniel looked at the security staff. "Bring my car around." Evelyn shook her head. "That's not necessary." "It is." Before either of them could say another word, Victoria stormed out of the mansion. "This is unbelievable." She glared at Daniel. "You're apologizing to an employee?" Daniel looked at her in disbelief. "An employee who just saved my mother's life." Victoria crossed her arms. "She brought that child into our home without permission." Daniel remained silent. Then something the paramedic had said echoed in his mind. You acted quickly. Quickly? How had Evelyn noticed his mother before anyone inside the house? He turned toward the head of security. Bring me the security footage. Victoria laughed nervously. Daniel, this is unnecessary. I said. His voice became firm. Bring me the footage. Minutes later, everyone gathered inside the home's private security room. The monitors displayed recordings from every camera around the mansion. Daniel replayed the events. There was Evelyn quietly cleaning the hallway, while Noah sat peacefully beside her with crayons. Margaret walked in smiling. Oh, Noah, are you drawing again? The little boy beamed. I made you a picture. Margaret hugged him warmly. Victoria watched him patiently before entering the room. What is this? Her voice echoed through the speakers. I told you children are not allowed in this house. Evelyn immediately apologized. I'm sorry, ma'am. The daycare. I don't want excuses. The footage showed Victoria snatching the drawing from Noah's tiny hands. The little boy looked heartbroken. Then, without warning, Victoria dropped the drawing into a nearby trash bin. The entire room fell silent. Daniel stared at the screen. His jaw tightened. Noah's little face crumpled as tears rolled down his cheeks. Margaret bent down, picked the drawing out of the trash, smoothed the wrinkles with her hands, and smiled lovingly. It's beautiful. Victoria rolled her eyes before walking away. The next camera showed Evelyn quietly comforting Noah instead of arguing. She never raised her voice, never disrespected anyone. She simply continued working. Daniel's fists slowly clenched. Keep playing it. The next recording showed something no one expected. As Evelyn and Noah walked toward the front gate after being fired, Margaret entered the upstairs sitting room alone. She reached into her handbag for her inhaler. It slipped from her hand, rolled beneath the chair. She bent down to reach it, then suddenly collapsed. No one inside the mansion noticed. Not the servants. Not Victoria. Not Daniel. The only person who looked up at the window was Noah. The room became deathly quiet. Daniel turned slowly toward Victoria. His voice was calm, almost too calm. You didn't just fire a loyal employee. He paused. You humiliated a little boy. His eyes filled with disappointment. And if it weren't for that same little boy, he looked toward the ambulance disappearing in the distance. My mother would be dead. Victoria's confidence vanished. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but Daniel raised one hand. No, his voice was firm. I've seen everything I needed to see. Victoria felt her heart sink because she suddenly realized Daniel wasn't just questioning what happened today. He was questioning everything about the woman he was about to marry. Victoria stood speechless. For the first time since Daniel had known her, she had nothing to say. The security room was silent, except for the soft hum of the monitors. Daniel looked at the frozen image on the screen. It showed little Noah pointing toward the upstairs window. A 2-year-old had seen what every adult inside the mansion had missed. Daniel slowly turned away. His heart was heavy, not only because of what could have happened to his mother, but because he had allowed an innocent woman and her child to walk away in tears. He immediately left the security room. Daniel. Victoria called after him. He didn't stop. Daniel, you're overreacting. He paused at the doorway but never looked back. No. His voice was calm. I finally see clearly. Victoria hurried after him. It was just a child. Daniel spun around. Exactly. His eyes burned with disappointment. He was just a child. He was frightened. He was hungry. And instead of showing compassion, he shook his head. You chose cruelty. Victoria folded her arms. I was protecting our standards. Daniel looked at her in disbelief. If our standards require us to humiliate a mother trying to provide for her son, he removed the engagement ring from his finger. Then those aren't standards I want in my life. Victoria's face went pale. What are you doing? Our engagement is over. The words echoed through the hallway. Housekeepers stopped working. Security guards looked at one another in shock. Victoria laughed nervously. You're ending everything because of a maid? Daniel answered without hesitation. No. He looked toward the front gate. I'm ending it because today you showed me who you really are. Victoria stood frozen as Daniel walked away. Minutes later, he climbed into his car. "Find Evelyn," he told his driver. "I don't care how long it takes." An hour later, Daniel found Evelyn sitting on a park bench outside a small apartment building. Noah slept peacefully with his head resting on her shoulder. She looked exhausted. When Daniel stepped out of the car, she immediately stood. "Mr. Harrison." Daniel held up his hand. "You don't have to call me Mr. Harrison anymore." He looked down at the sleeping little boy, then back at Evelyn. "I came to apologize." His voice trembled. "I failed you." Evelyn remained quiet. "I judged you without listening. I let someone else's opinion matter more than 4 years of your honesty." Tears formed in his eyes. "And I almost lost my mother because of it." Evelyn smiled gently. "She's alive. Because of you." Daniel knelt beside Noah. The little boy slowly opened his eyes. "Hi, Mr. Daniel." Daniel smiled through tears. "Hi, buddy." Noah reached into his tiny backpack. "I made another picture." He proudly handed Daniel a crayon drawing. This time it showed 4 people holding hands. Daniel, Margaret, Evelyn, and Noah. Above them were crooked little words. "Family helps family." Daniel couldn't hold back his tears. He hugged the little boy carefully. "I don't deserve this." Noah wrapped his tiny arms around Daniel's neck. "My mommy says everyone gets another chance." Daniel looked at Evelyn. She nodded softly, "As long as they're willing to change." Daniel stood. "I'd like to ask you something." Evelyn waited. "I want you to come back." She hesitated. "As head of household operations." Her eyes widened. "You've spent years caring for everyone in my home. I should have recognized your value long ago." He handed her a folder. Inside was a new employment contract. The salary was 3 times what she had earned before. It included health insurance, paid childcare, a college savings fund for Noah, and a company-owned home just minutes from a mansion. Evelyn covered her mouth. I don't know what to say." Daniel smiled. "Say yes." After a long moment, she did. 6 months later, the Harrison mansion felt different, warmer. Kinda, Margaret, had fully recovered and insisted Noah visit every weekend. She proudly displayed every one of his drawings around the house. The employees smiled more. They felt respected. They felt heard. Because Evelyn never forgot where she came from. One afternoon, Daniel gathered the entire household staff. "I've learned something." Everyone listened. Wealth can build a beautiful house. He looked toward Noah, who was laughing with Margaret in the garden. "But only kindness can make it a home." The employees applauded. Daniel walked outside. Noah ran toward him. "Come play." Daniel laughed. "I'm coming." As they walked to the garden together, he realized something money had never taught him. Success isn't measured by the size of your mansion. It's measured by the compassion inside it. And the greatest lesson he had ever learned had come from a poor maid and her little boy. Moral lesson: never judge someone by their position in life. Compassion, honesty, and kindness are worth far more than wealth or status. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness, or the smallest person, can change a life forever. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. What would you have done if you were Daniel? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more heartwarming stories about kindness, family, and second chances.